going to teach you how to solve percent problems. We have two different methods that we're going to use called the proportion method and the equation method. So we're going to start by showing you what those methods are and then continue with examples demonstrating each of those methods. So beginning with the proportion method, it's obviously going to be a proportion. So since we're just finishing up with proportions, this will be a nice transition for some of you. You always put the percent over 100 and compare that to the part over the whole, which should make sense. If you have 30% of something, 30 is just a part of the 100%, which is the whole. Some of you may have learned is over of, which is okay. However, when you get to some of the word problems, the is over the of will not be apparent. So you want to make sure that you understand we're comparing the part to the whole. We solve proportions like we always have, just by cross multiplying. The second method is the equation method. And we've actually done a little bit of this already this year as well. We're simply going to translate English words into math words, which means an equation. So the translating that you need to know is means equals, of means to multiply, and then you just have to be a little bit careful here. With the equation method, all percentages have to be changed to decimal form. So if we talk about 30% and we want to use that in the equation method, we need to write 30% as a decimal, which would be 0.30. So if we start our examples here, our first question, what is 20% of 30? So if we want to do the proportion method, my advice to you is just to set up the template, like draw your proportion in there, and then figure out what parts go where. So 20%, that's easy. It's 20 over 100. And then I'm looking for what part of 30 is the actual 20%. So the 30 is going to be the whole, and the missing piece is going to be the x. And that does fit your is over of vocabulary that you may have learned. So we solve by cross multiplying. We've got 100x equals 600. Divide both sides by 100 and x equals 6. With the equation method, we just have to translate. It says what is. Well, the what is our unknown, so put an x in there. Is means equals. 20% has to get converted to a decimal, so that would be 0.20. And then of means multiply, and I would recommend parentheses here for multiplication just because the dot may get confused with the decimal here. So let's just stick with parentheses. And when you multiply the 0.20 times 30, we get 6, which we should because we're solving the same problem. Example 2, the question reads, 3 is what percent of 50? So for the proportion method, again, kind of set up your template here, the two fractions. This time we're missing the percent, so the x should go in the percent spot. We're still comparing that to 100. And then we're looking, 3 is what percent of 50? Well, the 50 is the whole, and the 3 is going to be the part. So the 3 goes on top, the 50 goes on the bottom. When we cross multiply, we get 50x equals 300, excuse me. And then when you divide both sides by 5, we get x equals 6. This, however, is not our final answer because the question says 3 is what percent. So we actually have to go ahead and label that and say the answer is 6%. For the equation method, we'll translate here. It says 3 is. So that means 3 equals what percent? So that's our variable. That would be our x. And then of 50 means we're going to multiply by 50. And you may not like how that looks, so just rewrite it. It's x times 50 is the same as 50x. And this time we're going to divide both sides by 50. And you may want to show that on this one just because I want to make sure you divide in the correct order. You're not doing 50 divided by 3. You're actually doing 3 divided by 50, which will give us the decimal of 0.06. So x is 0.06, but again, this does not answer the question. It says what percent. But you'll recognize that 0.06 is just the decimal equivalent of, again, 6%. So a little extra step with either method here. All right, our last example, 15 is 30% of what number? For the proportion method, 30% means that 30 is going to go over 100. And then we're trying to figure out 15 is the part of what whole? The whole is what we're missing here, so the x is going to go on the bottom. Cross multiply, we get 30x equals 1500. Divide both sides by 30, and x is 15. For the equation method, just translate again. 15 is means 15 equals. 30% has to get changed to decimal form, so 0.30. And then of what number is our variable? Divide both sides by 0.30, and we get 50 is equal to x. Or x is 50. You can write that in the other order as well. So when you get to your homework assignment or your practice problems on this, it doesn't matter which method you prefer. You can either solve things by the proportion method or the equation method. You just have to show us one or the other. So on the bottom of your notes, there's a question, which method do you prefer? Just take a moment, think about that, write that down, and then as you move into the practice, just work with that method.